Hello, pageant fans. This is Ayce with Contesera Pageantry. Thank you for tuning in with us today. We have a very special guest with us. But before we begin, please like, share, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so that we can continue to bring content like this to pageant lovers all over the world. At Contesera Pageantry, this is what we live for. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce Hayley Tharpe, our reigning Miss Long Beach, California. Hi, Hayley. How are you today?
Hello. I'm so great. Thank you for having me. I love the studio. I love the energy so far. So, yes, I'm happy to be here.
Thank you.
Flowers.
We always try to give our guests a very special experience. And so we're glad you're loving the studio. We're glad you're loving the flowers. And we're so happy to have you. So we'd love to get to know you a little bit better. And so, Hayley, can you tell us about yourself and your pageant journey?
Yes, I can. So, again, my name is Hayley Tharpe. I am a lawyer. I'm a business owner of Legally Well, which teaches lawyers and law students the importance of self-care. And I am now competing for Miss California USA, which I'm so excited about. Our competition will be August 8th through the 10th, and I've just been loving my journey so far. My platform for my journey is Legally Well, as I mentioned, which, I'm a lawyer by day, but I'm a yoga and meditation teacher by night, and so I've learned to bring in different self-care techniques and manage my stress that could come with being a lawyer, and have created all these different courses to teach lawyers and law students how to manage in the legal field. So I'm excited to keep doing that and to promote that even further through my platform with Miss California.
So it sounds like you have almost 3 job titles. You're a beauty queen. You're also a wellness instructor. Whatever all of that kind of encompasses. So it's meditation, yoga, and then you're also a lawyer by day.
Yes.
And I will say, law is it is one of the most difficult things that you could choose to do with your life. And so, why choose to be a lawyer? And how has that kind of affected the beauty pageant aspect of your life?
Great question. Why did I choose to be a lawyer? So the answer has actually changed over time. When I was in undergrad, I majored in philosophy. Highly recommend taking a philosophy course if you haven't. And through that, I began to explore different options as to what I wanted to do going forward. I was told that I was on track to graduate a year early, so I had to think of something very fast. My mom's a probation officer, and so she always pitched the idea of me being a lawyer. I looked into it, I considered Howard Law, and I just went for it. And although I didn't have a strong reason as to why I wanted to be a lawyer at that time, I didn't grow up saying, I want to be a lawyer. It wasn't always my dream. But through law school, I figured out why I wanted to be there and what I would do with my life. So I know that I want to teach, and specifically, I love the rigor that is part of law school. I love that people who are in law school want to learn, and they put the effort into doing so. And so I know that now I want to eventually teach mindfulness in the law to law students. So that's just, again, incorporating the self-care and wellness and how that can be applied in law school and afterwards. So right now I'm loving being a lawyer. I do dental and medical malpractice, but I do have a bigger goal with my work in the legal field. And so, again, that ties to my platform with Miss California USA. I hope to inspire just lots of young women, older women, men, everyone, that they can be a lawyer and they can manage the practice of law in a healthy way.
Yeah, no, that's I know law is, also a very kind of stressful field, and this is why you've kind of tied in that wellness aspect. How has because I'm sure your reasons have changed. Like you stated, when you were an undergrad, you weren't sure of what you wanted to do, and then going to law school, and that changed it as well. And then now being a lawyer, did that stress really shape this need to create a space for wellness?
Absolutely. So when I graduated from law school, it was during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So that was already a tough time. The bar was online, and, I didn't have a graduation. I'm over it now, but it was a traumatic thing to go through. You have all of these plans and dreams of how your career or future may play out, and it didn't quite go that way. But I adapted, and through that, because, I was working from home, I didn't get to really integrate into working in a law firm. I was in big law, and so it's a huge learning curve. Instead of being able to go to my coworker's office next door and ask them a question, everything is behind the scenes because of the pandemic. So it just prompted a lot of additional stress and anxiety about the work that I was doing. And as a result, I did experience burnout. Okay? Burnout, if you know anything about it, it is a tough time to go through because it just feels like you are in shutdown.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, I actually ended up retiring from the practice of law for 1 year. I didn't have an idea as to how I got there or what my purpose was at that time. I didn't remember why I wanted to be a lawyer anymore. And I needed to take some time to get myself together, to learn those self-care techniques. And through that, I took different classes like salsa dancing and tennis and sewing lessons, and then eventually hot yoga. And when I was in hot yoga, I had this aha moment. And I just thought to myself, if I would have been doing this while I was in law school, and especially practicing law as a lawyer, I probably would have been able to manage the stress and the burnout that I was experiencing. So that's where I thought of the idea to teach lawyers the importance of self-care. I knew that law was a calling, so I had to get back. I had to make it work in some way, and I knew that other people resonated with that same burnout, stress, anxiety, induced feeling. So that's where Legally Well came about.
And this kind of this approach that you took, where you gave yourself the time to, let's say, recover, to kind of reintegrate who you were into what you were doing, and this kind of you were trying different things, right? And you had that aha moment during hot yoga, which, can you tell us a little bit what hot yoga is? Because I'm interested. I know what yoga is, but when you say hot, I'm assuming the temperature is raised up?
Yes, so the temperature is all the way up. We are in a yoga studio, and I believe it can go up to 110 degrees sometimes.
And this isn't torture. This is something you elect to do.
It feels so good. Of course, you have to prepare. You have to make sure you're hydrated. You have food in your system because it can be a lot. a lot of people think yoga is just this slow, like leisurely activity, but it's a full workout. There's different flows. And so hot yoga is no different. You're just now in this really hot room, you're sweating, but it feels so good because it's almost like you're releasing so much through that sweat, through that energy and practice. So I highly recommend.
Especially for those stressed out lawyers out there.
Yes.
Is there, because I'm liking this idea because I know that this isn't just for, law isn't the only profession that people experience burnout. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of burnout in medicine, government work. Have you thought about ways of integrating those pieces into the, these different kind of career areas, or is law kind of where your focus is at right now?
So law is definitely my focus. That is my audience. That's my community and my networks that I'm a part of. But I'm also a part of others as well. And it's so funny because I remember when I would have my yoga classes here at Palisades Park in Santa Monica or at Bluff Park in Long Beach, and people would see my signs that say self-care for lawyers. They say, oh, we need that in the medical field. We need that for teachers. We need that for engineers. Everyone needs self-care. And so I have had yoga classes, wellness workshops that are open to everyone. I've done things with churches, different organizations, and so I'm inclusive of everyone to engage in self-care, okay?
That's so great too, because when I hear wellness, I think, I need some of that in my life, but I'm not in the law. I'm not in the law profession.
Right.
So.
Yes. So even podcast hosts and, master students, yes, we all need wellness.
Absolutely. So that's so great to hear there. I'd love to, so you've kind of talked about your advocacy and where it stands, and how your career kind of integrates into your journey as a beauty pageant queen. I'd love to talk more about the beauty pageant side. So when did you decide that you were going to go for the crown? Having a career in law, I feel like it's almost it's an extra thing that you now have to think about on top of this very demanding career. So why beauty pageants for yourself?
Yes. So I decided last year I am going for the crown, okay? And I mean that very seriously. I am here to win. And I did so because I believe and I know that this opportunity will be sort of a bridge for a lot of the work that I've been doing over the past several years. So again, I mentioned my platform, being legally well. I'd love to further and promote that. More people need to hear about self-care, not just for lawyers, but for everyone. And this also gives me an opportunity to do some of the other things that I've been doing over the years, such as content creation. I would love to be a brand ambassador for Miss California USA, and public speaking, modeling, just, stepping out into the entertainment field. And really, again, like I said, bringing all of those things into one, being myself. And I always mention this process feels like becoming. Michelle Obama has her book, Becoming. And it just feels like this is not forcing me, but I've been given the opportunity to continue to become more and more of my best self. And it feels amazing.
Yeah.
It feels amazing.
That is this notion that we're not necessarily discovering ourselves, but kind of coming into it. And through all of these different experiences, like you're talking about, is that hoping to integrate these pieces into yourself is really beautiful to hear, right? Because, lawyer, model, entertainment. You want to uplift people as well. And so having all these kind of chess pieces at hand is something really cool to hear.
Yes.
All right. So as Miss, as Miss Reigning Long Beach, have you had the chance to kind of, talk with other winners? What has that experience been like? Because I know you're going for the Miss California crown and then eventually Miss Universe.
Yes.
And so have you had a chance to talk to other girls, and what has that experience been like for you?
Yes. So I call them my pageant sisters, those who I am competing currently with in the Miss California USA competition. We have a group chat, and so we all exchange different ideas. Those who have competed before, they give great advice about what heels to wear or, maybe what to consider with your walk, outfit choices, coaching, things like that. And we've also done several events over the past year. So the Best Buddies walk in Long Beach was so great and so heartwarming. And we've done a fashion show for Tiffany Haddish, which was, again, so heartwarming. That was for foster youth. And an array of other events. And so it's given us an opportunity to bond and to relate and to really just help each other out while we're all on this journey. I've also had the opportunity to chat with Sammy, who is the current Miss California USA, and it's just so inspiring to see all that she's doing and how this has impacted her life. And so I'm just excited to I'm excited. I'm excited to be on this journey.
It's so good to hear.
Yes.
I know, as we've interviewed many girls who are participating in pageants, and especially who are going for Miss California, and they all say it is a sisterhood. And there's, I'm so glad to hear that it extends just beyond the competition, it sounds like. So.
Yes, and if I can just say something.
Of course.
So there's this idea that with pageantry, everyone's super competitive and catty and will do things to kind of bring each other down, but I haven't experienced any of that. It really is a sisterhood, so I'm so grateful for that.
So good to hear. So good. Thank you, Hayley. So we've got to know a lot more about yourself, your kind of background in law and your current career, your advocacy, and then kind of your journey, your beauty pageant journey. And so we'd love to move on to the next section. We call this our yes, no, maybe section.
Okay.
And many of our viewers are familiar with this section, but it is essentially we ask you about 20 questions, and you can only answer yes, no, and maybe. And then at the end, we give you a chance to provide more context to, let's say, 2-3 questions. And this is always fun because I love hearing what the answers are, and then I love this is where I get to be a little bit devious and choose whatever questions I like.
Okay.
All right, so are you ready to begin? I
am.
Okay, all right. So remember, only yes, no, and maybe.
Okay.
Have you ever spoken up when it wasn't the easiest thing to do?
Yes.
Do you believe confidence is louder than words?
Yes.
Would you ever take a solo trip to find yourself?
Absolutely yes.
Have you learned more from failures than success?
Interesting. I'll say maybe.
Okay, maybe. Okay. Have you ever felt like you needed to change yourself for others?
Have I? Okay, I know. Just yes or no. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'll elaborate on that one.
Okay. We'll ask that one. Would you go to space if given the opportunity?
No.
Do you believe your advocacy will matter 10 years from now?
Absolutely yes.
Can you forgive without an apology?
Yes.
Do you think social media can be used to genuinely uplift others?
Yes.
Have you ever felt underestimated and proved them wrong?
Yes.
Is your inner voice stronger than it was 5 years ago?
Yes.
Do you believe beauty pageants should challenge stereotypes?
Yes.
Have you ever laughed through your tears?
Yes.
Would you ever run for political office?
No.
Is vulnerability a strength?
Yes.
If you could go back in time to change a moment in your life, would you?
No.
No. Do you think women supporting women is more than just a hashtag?
Yes.
Have you ever felt empowered just by being heard?
Yes.
Can joy be a form of resistance?
Yes.
Would you ever join a reality TV show?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So, yeah, I think we have some great answers, and then we also have some great questions for you to kind of elaborate on as well.
Yes.
And so I loved you had a very kind of strong inkling for this question, and I think it was, have you ever felt like you needed to change yourself for others? And I think you said yes.
Yes.
So explain. What was that like for you?
Yes. So that's a very interesting question. The reason that I hesitated was because, have I ever felt that I had to? Yes. Did that mean that I actually did change? No, not necessarily. As a Black woman, there's a lot of stereotypes that are associated with us, or standards that we are expected to meet, or a mold that we're expected to fit in. So, for example, until about 5 years ago, I have never worn my natural hair. And that was because I didn't know that it was okay. I didn't know that it would be professional. I didn't know how to care for my natural hair. And so I was, straightening my hair or doing different things to fit into a mold of what I thought would be presentable or cute. But one day I just decided to start loving who I am and to just go with it and to keep going and to not scare myself out of that journey. So yes, there have been times where I felt maybe I had to change myself or to be someone that I'm not. But through my self-care, my self-love journey, listen, I love who I am, and I'm not afraid to show that. I'm not afraid to challenge what other people may, expectations and standards other people may place onto me.
Yeah, no, I think I know hair is especially a complex topic in Black communities. And this idea that you were talking about, professionalism in the workplace and what's deemed professional and what's deemed, it's been codified as well, right? Like that you have to have this specific type of hair, or you have to have this specific type of hair in school, and to kind of go through that journey and to realize that, this piece that a lot of people, I would say like someone like myself, I don't have to think about my hair too much. I just think, do I want it short or do I want it longer? But it's such an integral part of, especially I think, the Black experience, especially for the women, and the way that you've kind of, especially working in big law, what that means for you. It's really important.
Yes, absolutely. It's been a journey to really at my core love who I am and love every part and piece of me, and to work with that and to empower others to do the same.
Beautiful. Okay. So you felt like it, but you didn't necessarily do it.
Yeah, not always. No, not always, and especially not now. Mm-hmm. I know who I am, and I'm strong in that, and I'm not afraid to show it.
Beautiful. All right, I'm going to go fun question. So,
okay.
You said yes to this. So I would love further elaboration. So I'm going to ask an additional question on top, okay?
Okay.
So you said yes to joining a reality TV show.
Yes.
I would like to explain your answer, and then I would love to know what type of reality TV show you'd love to join.
Okay, yes. So it's so funny. I've always imagined myself on a reality TV show.
Okay.
Growing up, I always watched The Housewives, Love and Hip Hop, Basketball Wives, Married to Medicine. Actually, a way that me and my mom bonded, of many ways, but we love our reality TV. And so I've always pictured myself doing the same, not for the drama, but just because of how inspiring those women really are when it comes to fashion, when it comes to their own platforms, and just being personalities. I love a strong personality. I think it's just the best thing when someone steps into who they are and will show all of it. And so I would love to be on one. When I was in law school, I thought Love in the Law, something like that.
I would watch.
Yeah. I think it would be really interesting, especially bringing self-care into that aspect. So.
And I think the cases would lend themselves to a lot of drama.
Oh, yes,
right?
Yes, of course.
What case are you working on today?
Right, okay. How was court today? Yeah.
Very cool, very cool. Okay, all right. I also, let's see.
There was one I did want to elaborate on.
Okay.
I think it may have been the third or fourth question, if you can just remind me.
Let's see. So the questions, have you learned more from failure than success? Was that the question?
Yes, that one was so interesting. So interesting. And the reason I find it interesting is because maybe I'm such an optimist, but there's just certain words that aren't really in my vocabulary. And failure is one of them. I know there's times where I may have not met the mark or didn't accomplish maybe that goal that I was going for at that time, but do I see it as a failure? No, I don't see myself failing. I don't look at myself as a failure, So I know that you learn from experiences that don't go your way, but I don't see that as a failing moment. And so it's hard to say whether you learn just as much or more from your failures as you do your success. Like, I honestly don't know. I think all of life is a success. I don't know. Everything is something to learn from.
I think I can understand where you're coming from, because the notion that we kind of label something as a failure versus it's something to learn from. It really is just, I know many times when I haven't gotten the job or when I wasn't accepted into something, I knew that it sucked at first. Like, the feeling's not great. You realize, okay, maybe like you're saying, I didn't meet the mark, but did it show me something else? And it doesn't, I think the work is in finding that there is another path, right? You confront whatever your misgiving was, and then you see that there are other options available for yourself. At least for me, that's how, I know what you're saying. I don't want to label it as a failure.
Right. But also, I'm such a strong believer that whatever's truly meant for you will never pass you by.
Yeah.
And so if there was a job that I didn't get, or an opportunity that I missed, it truly was not meant for me. And it's just on to the next.
Yeah, there we go.
But not with Miss California USA. Okay? This is a real goal, and I wouldn't see it as a failure, but that's because I'm not thinking or dreaming of anything like that as well. So.
Okay. Very cool. All right. So thank you. So that was our yes, no, maybe section. We're going to move on to our next part. And so this is our Q&A part. So these questions were asked for the Miss Universe 2019 pageant held in Atlanta, Georgia. But before we begin, how do you prepare for Q&A sections? How do you ready yourself for that moment?
So I'm big on preparation. That was actually my theme word for May for Legally Well. Every month I have a theme word. And so preparation is key. Preparation makes you feel confident. With that, I am doing pageant coaching, and I'm also practicing on my own. We were given a guidebook from Kristen Bradford, the executive director of Miss California USA, with sample questions. And so it's just about your prep.
I'm sure that law school helped a lot too.
Oh, of course.
I'm sure
Yes.
I'm sure being called on by those professors, at a moment's notice helped. So
Yes, they call it cold call.
yeah.
And you don't know if you're on for that class, but hopefully you did your reading, you did your assignments, because you have to be prepared at the drop of a dime if necessary. So yes, and the same when you're actually practicing law too in court.
Very cool. Okay. All right. So here are the questions. And so Hayley, you'll choose each question. I'll read it to you. And then we have our producer in the background, 30 seconds on the dot.
Ooh.
So you ready?
Yes.
Okay. All right. First question up.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There you go. Thank you. So your first question was asked of Miss Puerto Rico. Social media has empowered people to express their beliefs, but sometimes those beliefs are intolerant and dangerous. Should social media platforms respect free speech or regulate what people post?
I'm a fan of regulation to a small degree. I think that when it comes to certain topics that are put out there, for example, school shootings or gang violence, I don't think that we should be promoting that, and that should just be able to disseminate across the internet, especially if it's not true information.
So there's a balance there.
Yes.
What you're saying, there's a balance there.
Yes. I'm all for social media. I love to express myself and I love to create content, but I'm doing that keeping in mind that there's other people who are watching and receiving that, including children. And yeah.
It's an extremely complex topic, and I know, Hayley went a little over time, but I do think it's all right given the topic of, where we're currently at in the culture with, these social media companies. And so.
Yes.
All
It's
right. It's difficult.
I know.
And I'm nice.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for the extra time.
Okay. All right. So our next question comes from Miss Thailand.
Okay.
So, government surveillance is used to keep many nations and their people safe, but some believe this invades our right to privacy. What is more important to you, privacy or security?
There's a balance. So I'm a lawyer. We have our constitutional rights when it comes to privacy. And so there are strong reasons why the government does need to keep track of what's going on, you know, but at the same time, we have our own right to privacy when it comes to our homes and our, you know, our cars, our person. And so it's just a balance. Mm-hmm. It's not a secure or privacy. It's how do we find that balance? And we have created ways in the law for that.
Mm-hmm. So it's not one or the other for you, and especially, I think as a lawyer, it's more nuanced than that for you, right? It's not just privacy or security. Those two things are not necessarily oppositional to each other.
Right. That's a great way to put it. Mm-hmm. And I'll just say that as a lawyer, a joke that we often say is that if you ask a lawyer a question, it's usually never a yes or no answer. It depends.
It depends.
Yes. So I would say that for that question as well.
Yeah. These are some difficult questions.
Yeah, they're very
these are
very strong
I'm looking
questions.
at my producer. I'm like, these are very difficult questions.
Okay. Wow.
Okay. All right. So your last question for us.
There you go.
All right. So this comes from Miss Columbia. Millions of women worldwide lack access to reproductive health care. What do you believe is the most important issue in women's health and why?
The right to choose. It is our body. And so when it comes to having children or to protecting yourself in any way, you know, it's up to her. Mm-hmm. Because it all comes down to her health and how it's gonna impact her life. Of course, there's other people to consider. Of course, you know, the father, that is also something to consider. But when it comes to giving birth and going through this whole change and raising a child, that is a woman's right to choose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No one knows. I think every case is different, right? And this idea that motherhood is for everyone is not necessarily what's right for every woman. And so I understand where you're coming from, and I totally see that, right? I'm not a woman. I can't, begin to even understand what it means to be a mother, what it means to have a child, what it means to constantly have these aspects of yourselves brought into question, into legislation, when the only person that can, make this deep personal decision for yourself is you.
Right. And you made a great point. Not every woman wants to have children, or it may not be the right time to do so. And so it can't be up to anyone else but her for that major life change. Mm-hmm. Major. Mm-hmm.
So thank you. I know those were very difficult questions.
Yes.
But I think those questions, this was in 2019, and they still resonate, with women today. They still resonate with the kind of questions that we're still asking.
Seriously.
About the state of the world, about who we are as a nation, who we are as the world, as people who live, and people who make decisions for themselves. And so I know it was difficult, but you made it through.
Yes.
I'm so glad you made it through. And so we'll move on to our next section.
Okay.
And, before we kind of, go into the other pieces of, who you are and, what you want to promote, I want to ask you, through this process of becoming yourself and, becoming a beauty pageant queen, what advice would you give to other people or, anyone who wanted to take on the mantle, who was beginning their journey, as a beauty pageant participant?
Your questions are fire, okay? Listen, there's a reason you have so many viewers. So I would say that it all starts with self-love.
Mm-hmm.
This journey, although it's very fun, it's not for the weak.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many opinions, expectations, standards, as I mentioned earlier, that may be placed on you, and you have to have a strong sense of self and knowing who you are, loving who you are, and being able to put that out there. So really getting comfortable and loving yourself, I would say, is just that, I mean, creates so much confidence, and it reminds you of why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Because you're promoting yourself
Mm-hmm.
and all that you're doing, and, you know, your platforms and, you know, your goals and ambitions. And so if you don't love yourself, we can tell. We
Yeah.
can tell when someone doesn't truly love themselves, you know?
Yeah.
So I would start there. Self-love. And then from there, you can do anything.
Yeah.
I believe that. I believe it.
So important, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, you're under immense scrutiny from every single angle.
Yes.
And to have that kind of self-love and self-determination, it sounds like something that, you know, you're saying you got to go into this with all the love in the world for yourself.
Seriously. You may not get that love in return from everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have a strong foundation, you know that at the end of the day, I love myself, I love who I am, then that's going to keep you going. That won't discourage you along the way.
Very cool, very cool. All right. All right. And then let's say you win Miss California. Let's say you eventually take the crown as Miss Universe. What would be the first thing you would do?
Wow, the first thing?
Yes, the first thing.
Oh my goodness. The first thing I actually imagine doing is a photo shoot.
A photo shoot.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know why, but like, wow, I made it. And I just can't wait for that sash and the crown, and just, I think that would be the first physical thing.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many things that I would be thinking about and excited to do. So just, again, promoting Legally Well, self-care for lawyers, and going out more into the community. I'm big on community, so I'm involved in so many different organizations. So just stepping out and showing so many young women, you can do it. Like, I did it, and you can do it too, you know? I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I know the advocacy part is always really big, but I think the ability to enjoy yourself and to have that photo shoot and to have that very glam moment,
Yes.
I think is incredibly important as well, because it's you know, you have such a long journey ahead of you if you take the crown, and that part of celebrating yourself and what we were talking about, that kind of self-love and like, I did it.
Yes. And, you know, we're all beauty queens. So at heart, we love to get glammed up, and we love all of this stuff. So I'm excited for that photo shoot.
Amazing.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Hayley. Before we let you go, can you please let our audience know of anything, you know, your social media handles, anything you'd like to promote, and anything you'd like to say to our audience and your soon-to-be fans?
Oh, yes. So, again, thank you guys for being here, for, you know, watching. If you have any comments or questions for me, please feel free to ask. You can reach me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. My handle is Hayley Tharpe. So just my first and last name, and I'd love to connect with you there. I also have some exciting things going on. One of that being a fashion show. I'm so excited. My fashion show. It's a fundraising event for my Miss California USA journey.
Mm-hmm.
The theme is Dress Like the 80s Never Left. Okay. So I'd love to see you in your 80s looks and 80s glam. And, of course, you know, spread the word to anyone that you know who would like to attend as well. I'd love to have you there. Other than that, I would say, I mean, there's so much to say, but self-care. I have to end it on that. Like, please, if you are not doing so already, start getting in the habit of incorporating self-care into your daily routine. Mm-hmm. Okay? It's not just self-care Saturday or self-care Sunday. We need self-care all day, throughout the day. And, you know, again, especially for lawyers, I strongly recommend building that into your practice. So follow me at Hayley Tharpe, or as well at legally_well, which is my business. And I'm so happy to say that you guys are also invited to the Miss California USA competition, which will be held in Palm Springs at the Grand Hyatt Resort from August 8th through the 10th. It's going to be a beautiful time. The theme is like retro glam. So I think it's like 60s retro, something like that. But it's going to be a great time. I'm excited to have my hair and makeup team and, you know, just to see all of that prep go into play.
We're so excited, and you will see us there, Hayley.
Oh, great.
So we're very excited, very excited.
Yay. I'm excited about that. Yeah. Okay. Great.
So thank you, Hayley. We were so glad to get to know you, your advocacy, your journey. You're one of the many girls we will be rooting for, and we want to say thank you again for joining us.
Thank you. I really appreciate you guys, your time, and just for having me these great questions and how thoughtful you are.
Of course.
Yeah, it's been a great experience, so thank you.
All right. So thank you to everyone who watched our interview with Hayley Tharpe. We are so excited to see her move on to the Miss California pageant in Palm Springs this August. And to all of our viewers, thank you again. I am Ayce with Contesera Pageantry. This is what we live for. And with all of our love and, you know, with whatever else is going on in the world, we wanted to say thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you again.